Hey internet friends, in one word, how would you describe 2020? Well, if you happen to be a billionaire, lucrative would probably be your word to describe the year. If you've been watching my channel this year, you know that January 2020 set a record for the number of major CEOs who stepped down in a month. And that number only continued to rise through February, meaning that, before the lockdowns began, those CEOs were able to cash out on their stocks. Since March of this year, billionaires saw their wealth grow by $1 trillion. Yeah, you heard me right, $1 trillion. Somewhere in the heart of New York City, champagne is free-flowing into crystal flutes at some exclusive and not so socially distanced gathering, at the top of some imposing tower. Meanwhile, only a few blocks away, the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg cast their gaze over the Valley of Ashes, where the rest of America resides. With unemployment rates high across the country, 1 in 6 renters nationwide who haven't caught up on their rent. Nearly 26 million adults, or 12% of all adults in the country, reported that their household didn't have enough to eat in the last 7 days. And nearly 7 million Americans are facing evictions at year's end as defaulting mortgages seem to be on the horizon, with the CDC's temporary suspension on evictions due to end December 31st. But no worries, because Amazon's Jeff Bezos had his wealth grow from $113 billion in March to $182 billion in October. Dan Gilbert, who is the chairman of Quicken Loans, a mortgage lending company, watched his fortune balloon from $6.5 billion in March to $43 billion in November. And we can't forget about Elon Musk, who supposedly surpassed Bill Gates on the Forbes list. His wallet grew by $100 billion since the beginning of the year. While Americans were having trouble feeding their families and paying their rent, it was reported that in March of 2020, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos had asked for government funding to the tune of $5 billion in grants or loans to keep commercial space company employees on the job and their launch facilities open. During this time, Bezos actually started a relief fund for his employees that encouraged everyone to donate to his contract employees and delivery drivers during the lockdown. So not only did Bezos ask for handouts from the government, but he asked for donations from peasants like you and me to keep his employees paid, all while pushing fear and supporting the furthering of lockdowns through the propaganda mouthpiece known as the Washington Post, that Bezos bought back in 2013. Now, if you don't know me, you might think I sound pretty anti-capitalist. Capitalism is, by definition, an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit, rather than by the state. I'm simply anti-government enforced monopoly. It's important to note this distinction. Capitalism doesn't exist when the state puts pressure on small businesses to lock down, just like they did back in March. We're talking local brick-and-mortar establishments who will never reopen. It was recently reported that nearly 1/3 of small businesses in New York and New Jersey are still closed since January amid the pandemic. Meanwhile, Amazon benefited from the pandemic more than any other retailer because the government decided Amazon facilities were essential and sold essential items as though no germs could ever survive on Amazon's cardboard boxes, but they could definitely survive on the surfaces of small businesses. So when you can't go into town for what you need, there's obviously an increased demand for e-commerce. And when you control both the institutions profiting the most and the media outlets disseminating the information to the public, cranking out fear that renders people unwilling to leave their homes to shop for what they need, it's easy to see how a controlled demolition of small businesses took place, and how the middle class is totally being eradicated through a virus that most people, asymptomatic people, otherwise known as healthy people, have to get a test to know they have. To put the wealth of the 1% into perspective, billionaire wealth is now twice the amount of wealth held by the bottom 50% of all American households combined, or approximately 160 million people. Of course, those are the billionaires and numbers we know about. The richest people in the world aren't on the Forbes list. Most of us don't even know their names. They control the fake money and fake monetary system, the whole system of debt slavery for the 99%. So the whole point of me highlighting the wealth redistribution this year isn't to get you to watch the world burn with me. Once a pattern emerges, it's easy to see what will happen next and where it's all headed, but unfortunately, what isn't easy is getting others to see what's happening right in front of their face. Now please tell me if you're noticing, seeing the same things I am. Leading up to Thanksgiving, there were numerous articles saying that Thanksgiving was going to be a super spreader event because there were so many selfish people who wanted to get together with their family after nearly a year of the new abnormal. After Thanksgiving, all I've seen are articles saying that hospitals are bracing themselves for impact as they anticipate the number of cases, not necessarily deaths rising as a result of collective selfishness. In response to the number of rising cases, states are implementing restrictions and furthering lockdowns, which directly negatively affects the finances of the middle class, as we saw earlier this year. This is all leading into the Christmas season, which we directly correlate with being inside with friends and family. So inevitably, you'll see a rise in cases because it's cold and flu season. People are inside more, they get less vitamin D and less fresh air, their immune system suffers as a result. That's how it's always been, that's how it works. On the political front, Dr. Michael Osterholm, the coronavirus advisor to Joe Biden, said a 4 to 6 week nationwide lockdown would help bring the virus under control in the U.S. Can you imagine the financial impact if small businesses are forced to close for another month while Walmart, Amazon, Home Depot, and other major retailers remain open? The result will be no more small business, no matter what measly stimulus package is passed. On a personal level, what are you going to do with your $1,500 government check? Pay your rent for another month? Hire a babysitter to sit at home with your children during their distance learning so you can go to work? I'm theorizing that this chain of events is leading up to the acceptance of universal basic income. People are already begging the government for checks because they're desperate. As the World Economic Forum predicted, I think it was the World Economic Forum anyway, you'll own nothing and you'll like it. Build back better, neo-feudalism and vaccine passports. Gotta get the rush vaccine in order to travel, return to work or school, or get your monthly check from Uncle Sam. When we were saying it months ago, they called us all conspiracy theorists, but now they just call it the future. And all of that sounds pretty daunting, and I don't mean to be doom and gloom. I only mean to point out how little resistance to the system has occurred because people are afraid. They're so afraid to die that they forget that living is the whole point. They've manufactured the consent of many, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can say no whenever you would like, and in the process, you might inspire others to do the same. It's a starting point, at least. What do you think, internet friends? I always look forward to your comments. I appreciate you supporting my content on Patreon, subscribing, and following me on social media. More videos to come in December, so make sure to check back. Bye!